Breaking news, new details and images just coming into CNN of what North Korea says is the dismantling of its only nuclear site. The explosions taking place just hours before President Trump abruptly canceled his meeting with Kim Jong Un. And North Korea tonight is responding for the first time to Trump's cancellation. Will Ripley is out front. He's in North Korea. Will, you saw all that. That is your video. You just had 20 hours of a journey with a hike, blacked out train windows. You get there, you're allowed to film it. You've been completely out of communications. Let's start with what did you see?
Yeah, after we traveled, more than 15 hours to get to the Punggye-ri nuclear site, Aaron, and it was actually surprising how much time we spent on the site. We spent more than 9 hours on the ground. First, we got a briefing from the deputy director of North Korea's Nuclear Weapons Research Institute, and then they took us tunnel by tunnel. They opened the doors. It's the first time we've ever had a look inside the tunnels that North Korea has used to conduct 6 nuclear tests since 2006, and we saw that they were rigged with explosives as far back as the eye could see. Now, we didn't have any experts in our group. It was only journalists. So we couldn't verify how deep those explosions went and if this really does render the tunnels permanently unusable, as the North Koreans claim. But we also saw them blow up all of the buildings at Punggye-ri, buildings that were used to house equipment, house officers that were stationed on site. And they say they're going to shut down the entire area, clear it out, and keep people from going in there.
So you watch all of this happening, and we can hear the kind of 3, 2, 1 and the detonations happen. I guess I'm curious, Will, did they let you go into the tunnels to see any of this, or sort of only from the outside? How far in, I guess, did you get to penetrate to the site?
Yeah, we asked if we could walk inside, but there were guards at the entrances, and because the explosives were right up to the doors, literally, it just wasn't possible for us to go inside the tunnels to see how far they went, how they were set up, and obviously there weren't any tunnel experts in the group, but I can tell you that the explosions, the strength of them was really extraordinary. The ground was actually shaking at the observation post up at the top of the ravine that we hiked to as we watched them blow up each of the tunnels.
And you did have to hike, right? That hour-long hike that you had to take after you were done the train ride. I mean, it's pretty incredible what you went through to get there. And then, as you're watching this, Will, then the president of the United States comes out and calls out the whole summit. You find out about it, and you ask the North Koreans that you're with about it, right? Who were at the nuclear site, supposedly dismantling it, and they had no idea?
We actually had just left the nuclear site and we were on the train. It was very late at night here when the news broke. And we were sitting around kind of talking about the day, getting ready to go to bed. And then I get the phone call from our international desk. And, there was no on the record immediate response, but a lot of phone calls were made. There was a lot of stunned silence. It was a really awkward and uncomfortable moment. And, I know that we have a response now that's just been issued by North Korea's foreign ministry. Excuse me. Actually surprisingly restrained, Aaron. I thought that we were going to get an angrier response from the North Koreans, but what they're saying is that they don't think that President Trump's decision is in line with someone who wants peace on the peninsula. They say they're still willing to sit down and meet with the U.S. face to face. They think that this situation shows just how severe relations are between the U.S. and North Korea, and they say that's why the summit is necessary. So it sounds like the North Koreans still want this summit to happen, even if it doesn't happen on June 12th, Aaron.
All right. Thank you very much, Will Ripley, for your incredible reporting, of which we're going to see a whole lot more on our program. I want to go now to the former U.S. ambassador to NATO, Nicholas Burns, senior diplomatic correspondent for CNN, our own Michelle Kaczynski, and former CIA operative Bob Baer. And Ambassador, let me start with you. What you heard from Will Ripley, right? So he's with the people who were at the site, what they say is their only test site, right, for nuclear weapons. They've used it for their 6 most recent tests. Here he is. He asks them about the summit being called off. And they clearly found out from him. I mean, that is pretty stunning, isn't it?
Well, it seems to be an impulsive decision by the president to call off this summit. And obviously, the first the North Koreans heard about it was when they read the letter on CNN or on some other network. That was also true, by the way, Aaron, of the South Korean and Japanese governments. So one thing you don't want to do in a situation like this is surprise your allies. You saw the shock in President Moon and his cabinet. You know, Aaron, I think that at the end of the day, neither of these two governments was ready for this summit. The United States, the Trump administration couldn't stick to a single message about what they wanted to achieve. You saw the president being fairly relaxed in his language. You saw this draconian take no prisoners, John Bolton, Mike Pence line. They want to use the Libya example. The North Koreans have issued two really tendentious, aggressive statements in the last week. They ought to just take some time. Maybe it's good they're not going to meet. They ought to go back to first principles, take this out of the public eye, let Mike Pompeo lead this on the American side.
Yeah.
Take some time to see if they can put this back together.
Clearly, Mike Pompeo is the one with a relationship with Kim Jong Un. I know the president likes to say the two of them have a relationship, but I think it's fair to say Pompeo is the guy who has it. Bob, I want to show this video again because we're just getting the first video, and there were no weapons inspectors, there were no officials, there was. Will Ripley's a journalist, right? He was there. He was viewing this. So he sees these tunnels imploded. You heard him. He asked to go inside. They said no. But he said the explosions were so significant they could feel them from their perch, which, by the way, they'd had to hike to an hour to get to this mountainous site. Do you think they really dismantled this site? And by the way, I understand we don't know what else they've got, but this is their main one. Do you think they really dismantled it?
Well, Aaron, it's sort of irrelevant, these caves and the fact that they set off explosions in them. I mean, they can be easily rebuilt anywhere in North Korea. All you need to do is pull out the coaxial cables, you take the sensors, you move them somewhere else, you've got the plans and the rest of it. Symbolically it was important. It's a signal from the North Koreans. Yes, we want a deal. Yes, we want to have an agreement. But, very easily they could rebuild this in a week somewhere else and test another bomb anytime they wanted. This site was disposable. It was half destroyed in any case.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, it was seismically, incapable, I guess, of doing more tests, as they had admitted. Michelle, coming into today, though, right, they do this. Then President Trump drops his unexpected shocker of calling off the whole summit, which flies in the face of everything he has been saying lately, which has been incredibly complimentary, to say the very least, of Kim Jong Un. Here he is.
I will guarantee his safety, yes. We will guarantee his safety. And we've talked about that from the beginning. He will be safe. He will be happy. He'll get protections that will be very strong. We want to thank Kim Jong Un, who really was excellent to these three incredible people. Kim Jong Un he really has been very open and I think very honorable.
And then today, Michelle, all of a sudden it's, hey, we're done. Summit's off. What happened?
Right. Well, we saw the jitters from the North Koreans more than a week ago, I guess it was, when they threatened to pull out. They talked about denuclearization, what it means in their view versus the United States. Yeah. They threatened not to talk to the South Koreans either. And since then, even though you do have a hard line and the reiteration of that Libya model from certain members of the administration, which we know from sources truly does anger the North Koreans, worried about their own safety, we've seen Trump seem like he's trying to salvage this. So the U.S. knew that there were problems. We see Trump talk about guaranteeing safety, which was one of the things we know that Kim Jong Un wanted. We even see Trump start to bend on, maybe denuclearization would have to have some kind of phasing in process, which was against what the administration had been repeating over and over, that no, this needs to be quick, and then North Korea can get its reward for that. So you saw them trying to save this, but we know that this big sticking point has been North Korea wanting it to be slow and phased, and each time they take a step, they want something in return.
And, Ambassador, as we see these explosions, right, I mean, the images here are very powerful. But do you agree with Bob Baer that it's easy to test somewhere else? Plus, look what we just saw with Iran, right? Giving up a test site is far from giving up the know-how and the ability to build a nuclear weapon, especially when Korea had gotten a lot further and had the ability, according to even the U.S. analysis, of striking a city as far as Chicago.
Well, I do agree with Bob. This was a symbolic gesture, but frankly, it could be meaningless. The North Koreans have nuclear weapons. They have the ability to test them, nuclear tests. They have the ability to test their ballistic missiles. That'll continue. And the big problem, Aaron, has always been here, was it realistic for the administration to think that in one meeting in Singapore in June, Kim Jong Un was going to say, I'll give it all up on some schedule. It was never realistic. This, if there's going to be a negotiation, it's going to be months or years. And so does Donald Trump have the strategic patience to do that? Is he going to, will he accept something less than perfection? Will he compromise it all, or will he insist on getting everything he wants? I think John Bolton and Vice President Pence have signaled they want everything from Kim Jong Un the first day, and it's completely unrealistic.